My father went into the Army in 1941, and Rosalie during World War II, and she became a single mother. She got a government job working with the Signal Corps company, Signal Corps, which was a division of the government. And what they did was they were a communications group. She held that job throughout the war. When the war ended, she was let go. They got to know each other again after being gone for a few years. He was probably in Europe for a couple of years.
Rosalie came to H.O.M.E through a referral from Catholic Charities, and I was told that there was a woman in her 90s who needed housing. She had been in a housing situation that she wasn't happy in, and financially it was too difficult. Previous to that, she'd been in another elderly housing situation that she was uncomfortable in. She didn't feel like she fit in.
She lived on the 7th floor, I think. They had 2 elevators. There were a lot of people there who had money. Rent was pretty high. And she said, "Oh, I want to live with Jewish people."
Spoke to Rosalie's son, Earl, and he and I met with Rosalie, and she told me of her concerns for where she was at, how lonely she was, and how she just didn't like romping around in this big apartment, as she put it, all by herself. She did tell me about that she had services. She had a homemaker coming in. She'd been through a number of homemakers because she had told me that when she'd get a new homemaker, she would lay on the floor and tell them to see if they could just pick her up. And I think that kind of upset some of the homemakers. I found it amusing and thought that she is a great personality and quite the character, and would probably fit in really well at the Pat Crowley house. The Pat Crowley house was where I was looking at for housing for her.
It was just livable. It was more friendly. The residents were all friendly. They weren't really outgoing, communicative. The ones who were. There were folks here that that aren't really outgoing or anything, but it's just a nice home environment. This is an apartment building. This is like an apartment. This is a living room. You have a dining room with the wall knocked out, so it's a big double dining room. There's bedrooms. She had this great living room that nobody ever used but her. Her VHS tapes, and we scrounged some VCRs. I had a couple of them in there. One broke, and we found this one that she was using lately, and it had a whole bunch of books that she read. It was just really Rosalie friendly. She just carried on up there like she did when she was living by herself, and she had somebody cooking her lunch and dinner. She made her own breakfast.
This was Rosalie's room, and so her family had come and picked up all her personal items, but we're still left with Rosalie's rocking chair that H.O.M.E had gotten her, and she would sit there often, and so it's kind of like the whole room has now got an empty space. But we try to wait a little while before we fill a spot with H.O.M.E to give a little respect to the previous resident, and we won't be able to fill it. We'll certainly never fill Rosalie's shoes, but we'll have somebody new who really needs housing who will fill the spot.